Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing the Arizona Cardinals. They're 4-9 and it's getting worse. Kyler Murray now out for the season with a torn ACL. We all saw it on Monday Night Football. Non-contact injury early in the season, early in the game, and unfortunately, that's going to end it for Kyler. So, Sam, the Cliff Kingsbury era, the Kyler Murray era, it's an interesting story in Arizona. And where do we think it's going from here now after this Kyler injury?
Yeah, they're in a really tough spot. Obviously, Kyler done for the year with the ACL, but not just that. It's, an ACL injury is minimum 9 months. It could be a year, depending on how bad it is, depending on the recovery, all these kinds of things. Remember, OBJ tore his in the Super Bowl, and he's now saying maybe not even the regular season, maybe just the postseason. Jerry Jones doesn't even sound like it might be, this year at all. So we might be talking about the next time we see Kyler Murray seriously being late next year, if at all. Maybe it's 2024. So all of a sudden, if you're Arizona, this season's been a disaster. You were supposed to be kind of getting better and better year after year. Last season was good, even if it ended miserably. And this season just hasn't been the same. Like, everything's been bad. The offense has been rough. Kyler Murray hasn't looked like the same guy. A lot of the personnel decisions they've made over the last few years have kind of failed to work out or haven't exactly maximized what was there. So all of a sudden, you're staring into the rest of the kind of season, the closing stretch of this year, and it looks like it's going to be the kind of year that gets people fired or makes significant changes happen because of the way it ended. But everybody just got extended. Like, everyone got new contracts. We're all on new money. Like, it's great. We're building on this thing. So that's not a great situation to be starting from. Like, which one of these giant guaranteed contracts do I want to get rid of?
Yeah, it's a tough one in Arizona, man. I mean, I think first off, just to back up, right? Cliff Kingsbury comes in 2019. It's probably the 2018 Cardinals had one of the worst rosters, at least one of the worst offenses of the last 10, 15 years, right? Offensive line, all of it. The overhaul started there. They moved on from last year, the previous year's first-round pick, Josh Rosen, to go with Kyler Murray. Mm-hmm. And it continued to look like a good move, right? An aggressive move. Go with the quarterback we think is better. They were right. Kyler's getting better every single year, 19, 20, and 21. The team's record got better every single year, and then this year it didn't, right? And so even if Kyler Murray was healthy, we're going to get to the end of the year saying, okay, Cliff Kingsbury didn't take that next step as a coach. Is it time to switch up that combination? Kyler Murray's definitely locked in, right? I mean, more so, no matter what Cliff is making, Kyler's definitely locked in. You just paid your quarterback. But we were going into the offseason thinking their offense underachieved, right? They have playmakers, but they underachieved. Defense, they're great at scoring defensive touchdowns. They have 4 of them. But other than that, they're not great. They need an influx of talent. There was already a lot of work to do in Arizona. And now we're talking about, like you said, maybe not having Kyler Murray well into next year. Really tough situation in Arizona.
Yeah, you're right. Kyler Murray is there for long term. They gave him the biggest extension, and because of the salary cap and those kinds of restrictions, that's the hardest thing to change, So kind of like Denver and Russell Wilson, the one thing that's most likely to stay there next year is Russell Wilson because his contract is just so prohibitive to do anything else with. That's the same story with Kyler Murray. And yet, when you look at the numbers, they're mind-blowing. Like, Kyler Murray, so overall PFF grade, 82.8 in 2020, 82.9 in 2021. His passing grade jumped 10 points, so it was a big improvement, even if the overall mark wasn't necessarily huge. But this year, passing grade dropped down to 63.5 and his overall to 67. And really, the big change is the big plays just stopped happening. Like, last season, he led the NFL in big-time throw rate by a distance, 7.9%, massive number, 43 big-time throws. This year, that's 2.2%, which is lower than Taylor Heineke. It's lower, than a bunch of quarterbacks that don't make big plays ever. And Kyler Murray is supposedly a big play machine, and they just haven't been there at all this year. Now, okay, there have been injuries to the offense. He hasn't always had a full complement of receivers, etc., but he's had enough to work with. Like, some of these other guys who have much better big-time throw rates have had less to work with than Kyler. So his performance has been a disaster. The offense under Kingsbury, I don't think has evolved as quickly as it needs to. I was talking to somebody on a radio hit about this before. Remember before, Chip Kelly, right? Chip Kelly comes in with an offense. It takes the league by storm. It dominates for a year, and eventually teams figure it out and slow it down. And there's no evolution or not enough evolution. It doesn't work as well. And this is the story like time and time again. I think that process is accelerated now. Like defenses figure things out quicker and they can then make those adjustments in season. And if you're not constantly evolving the offense, you just end up falling way behind and your system gets found out. I think that's kind of what's happening here.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. It's my go-to when betting on the NFL this holiday season. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Check it out. Right now, everyone can earn up to 100% boost with DraftKings stepped-up same-game parlays. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app, place a same-game parlay, combine multiple bets like which team will win, player props, point totals, and more. The more legs you add, the bigger the boost, the bigger your shot to win big. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use code PFF. Place a $5 bet on any NFL team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with the code PFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. Yeah, Sam, I definitely think there's elements to that, right? It wasn't exactly Chip Kelly, but like it was a good, successful offense that had a next step to take. And yeah, I mean, when Kyler Murray's been out there, they haven't taken advantage of his big playability, both as a runner and as a downfield thrower. And the other big offseason move that they made, remember they traded their first round pick for Marquise Brown, a guy that's heading into the end of his first contract. He's going to have to get paid for next year. DeAndre Hopkins already has a cap number of $30 million at wide receiver, which is great. I mean, that's fine. Hopkins is awesome. And I know he had the fumble Monday night, but he's an awesome player, and yeah, he missed the first chunk of games this year, and maybe that's part of the offense's inconsistency, but he's one of the key pieces they need to build around. But I think, are they getting to the point where you're looking at him making 30 and Rodney Hudson making 11 and DJ Humphries making 18 and Zach Ertz making 12? There's a lot of money invested in all these players. Kyler might be injured, and there might be just an overhaul coming in general in Arizona.
Yeah, potentially. The question, though, is which of those, like I said, we go back to the start of this, like which of the big guaranteed contracts he just handed out are you willing to get rid of? To me, because it's a kind of season where something significant has to change, right? Like I don't envisage a scenario where they bumble through the last few games of the season and they just go, oh, this was just a bad year. Like stuff happens, bad luck. Let's just reload and go again, right? Somebody's getting fired over this is what I'm saying. And it's not going to be Kyler because his money is, they just gave him the long-term deal. It's too difficult to get away from that. At which point it's probably not the GM because the GM always has the fall guy of the coach to go first. So it feels like Cliff, right? Cliff ends up being the scapegoat.
He might be. I mean, that might end up being it. And then, what does that replacement look like if you're Arizona? Are you looking for the next, we say this every offseason. What are you looking for in a coach when you have a young quarterback? Are you looking for the next offensive mind? Or a team like Chicago that went the defensive route and they're still now just getting the best out of their quarterback in Justin Fields. Do the Cardinals go to a defensive coach, try to overhaul that side of the ball and say, okay, we're going to bring in, the next good offensive coordinator that's going to get the most out of Kyler Murray? But again, oh man, this poor injury situation. I feel terrible for Kyler and bad for the entire Arizona organization because as bad as the season's been, and again, they're 4-9 with Kyler Murray for the most of the year, they at least have him, right? They at least had him, Nuke Hopkins. They've got this foundation. They were in the playoffs last year. They could go into the offseason and say, okay, we're going to overhaul this roster and get it back on track. But now you might be waiting until 2024 to really see the whole thing together. Yeah,
and they're going to be another one of these teams that are going to have a very high draft pick, more than likely, right? They currently pick number 6. Now they're behind a bunch of teams that need a quarterback, but if your quarterback is out next year, do you draft a rookie just for the season? What is your stopgap for next year? They're just in such a tough spot now.
Yeah, I mean the one good benefit is if they do say, I saw somebody suggest like Jacoby Brissett, Arizona Cardinals starter in 2023, right. So if you do, what the Browns did, grab Jacoby Brissett for the first X number of games, he's your bridge to Kyler. Then maybe you're sitting there looking at Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, one of the best non-quarterbacks in the draft. That's not a bad place to be in the draft. But again, there's a lot more to do with this roster.
Yeah, I mean, there could be 3 quarterbacks go off the board in the first 5 picks. So if Arizona's sitting there at number 6, like they're in a pretty good spot for getting one of those marquee non-quarterback players in this draft. I think you're right. A bridge quarterback to the veteran that's coming back from injury makes a lot of sense for them. The only good news I can find for their season pretty much is all of a sudden Josh Jones at left tackle, who's going to get a run now that DJ Humphries is out, is actually looking like a viable left tackle. Maybe that's a way of saving $18 million or, a bunch of money next year and trying to move on. But there's not an awful lot of reasons for optimism in Arizona right now.
Josh Jones, Zach Allen has had a breakout season here, 2019 third rounder. In of course, it's the last year of his deal. But hey, right. It's been a rough season overall in Arizona. Got a feel for them and for Kyler Murray. So let us know, what would you do, Arizona Cardinals, heading into 2023? It's a PFF NFL Daily.